Hello everyone and welcome to Top 4 Love.
The first date is the discovery period. Keep in mind that the first date is usually the discovery period. In other words, it is the time when you learn more things about the other person. Aside from that, you should also open up about yourself, so that your date would also know more about you. This is the time to see if you would really be good together or not. Don't forget to smile. Smiling would not just make you feel better, but it can also make the other person more comfortable of being with you. A smile would encourage a more positive atmosphere between the two of you. With that, you can soon share funny stories and jokes, which would make your first date more enjoyable. Shave your face. Although not all women love their men to have shaved faces, it is still safer to go on a first date with a clean face. This is because a woman may think that you are untidy or have the tendency to be violent if you won't have a clean face on the first date. Aside from that, some women actually have bisexual tendencies, and they simply love looking at a soft face. Do not have sex on the first date. Even if your body is telling you to sleep with the guy that you are dating, you should not have sex with him on the first date. This is because there is a huge possibility that you still do not know lots of things about him after the first date. Aside from that, if you do it on the first date, it may cloud your judgment on whether to continue dating him or not. Don't be too serious on the first date. Dating should be fun, and you should enjoy it even on the first date. Being too serious may put your focus too much on the questions that you need to ask the other person with. It can make you feel that you are trying to interview him, or you are the one who is being interviewed. Try to enjoy the company of the other person, so that you can get the most out of it. If you are still not over your previous boyfriend, then do not date yet. You should be fair on the other person that you would be going on a first date with. With that, if you are still not over your ex, then you should postpone the date. If you really like the new guy, then give yourself some time, so that you won't end up thinking or even talking about your ex on your first date. Impress your first date with your voice. Always remember that women do not want men that sound immature, which is usually the case if the person's voice has a high tone. Thus, you should try to use a deep voice on your first date, so that you can impress your girl. If it cracks, then you need to practice it until you become more accustomed on keeping it low. Do not talk about topics that can make her uncomfortable. When you are on a first date with a person you really like, focus more on light topics when you talk to her. Don't talk about sex since it can make her uncomfortable. Aside from that, you should also avoid very serious topics, since you want to establish an atmosphere between the two of you that is more relaxed and friendly. Use non-smelling deodorants. It is a complete turn-off to a woman you are dating if you start to smell. Always remember that you can get nervous on your first date, and it can get you perspiring fast. Thus, you need to make use of a good deodorant, so that she won't be able to smell your sweat. You can also use a mild perfume if you want to, or an aftershave. Don't act like you are in a relationship already. Since it is still going to be your first date, then you should avoid acting like you are in a relationship already. In other words, don't show any kind of jealousy if your date accidentally glanced at another girl. Acting like this can scare off the other person, and it would ruin your chances of going out more. Don't put your date on a pedestal. No matter how much you regard your date as your dream man or a dream girl, you should always remember that you are in the same league. This is because, if you put your date on a pedestal, your date may have the tendency to look down on you, which creates an imbalanced relationship. Aside from that, it can make you look past his or her faults, which can make problems in your relationship later on. Not all good things in the first date may be true. Keep in mind that there are some people who are very good in acting, which can help them in impressing their first dates. Thus, you should not expect that all the good things you saw in your date are true. Try to observe on your succeeding dates, so that you can see if it is still there or not. Always remember the true definition of getting to know you. Getting to know you means that the other person wants to learn things about you, such as your likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams, and such. Always remember this, since some men may say that they want to know you, just so they can get under your pants. If you feel that your date is like this, then you should not go out with him again, unless the feeling is mutual. Don't be blind on your first date. No matter how you see the other person as the best partner that you could ask for, you should still be open to learning more about his or her negative characteristics. you need to recognize the fact that nobody is perfect. If you can accept the person's negative traits though, and he or she can also accept yours, then it is a sign that you are in for the long run. Avoid anything that can cause bad mood. When you are on your way to your first date, you should avoid anything that can cause your mood to become bad. For example, if you know that you would be going through heavy traffic, then you should leave your place earlier. You don't want to start your date on a bad mood, since the other person can feel it, and you may make the atmosphere negative as well. Never forget her first name. In your first date, you have to keep in mind that women are quite sensitive, even when it comes to their names. Thus, you should not forget her first name. Aside from that, you should use her first name whenever you can during your conversation, and say it in a sweet tone, so that she can feel that you are sincere and that you care. What to do when it is cold outside. If during your first date, it is going to be cold outside, then make sure to wear warm clothing. Aside from that, you should also bring a jacket with you. By doing this, if your date forgets to bring her own jacket, then you can offer her yours, without you feeling cold. This will surely impress your date, and would see you as a true gentleman. Do not forget what aftershave you wore on your first date. It would always come handy when you have a good number of aftershaves that you can choose from. With that, you should not forget what aftershave you would be using on your first date. By doing that, and if you are lucky enough to set a second date with her, then you can ensure that you can wear a different aftershave for the second time around. Do not drink too much. On your first date, there is always a chance to drink a few glasses of wine or bottles of beer, especially if you have easily become comfortable with one another. However, you should control the amount of alcoholic beverage that you drink. You don't want to get drunk, since the other person may not appreciate it. Aside from that, if you get drunk, you may not even recall much of the details of your first date the next morning, which could leave you clueless on whether you want to go out with the same person again or not. Where to take her on your first date. It is quite a usual thing to bring your first date to a fancy restaurant, and this is actually not a bad idea. However, if you know that she prefers to do something different, then you should come up with a different way of impressing her. For example, if she is into sports, then you can take her to a sporting event, such as volleyball, basketball, or baseball, just before you head to a place for dinner. You are not a bad person if you are not interested. It is very possible that after a few minutes of spending time with your date, you would realize that you are not interested after all. With that, if you can see that your date is really into you, there is no need to reciprocate. Just be polite, and end the date as early as possible after giving yourself a chance to become interested again. Give your date a chance. Every person has certain preferences on the type of man or woman that they want to build a relationship with. However, you need to realize that nobody is perfect. Thus, even if you see certain characteristics or behaviors of your date that does not impress you at the start, you should still give him or her a chance. For all you know, you may even eventually enjoy that he or she has those certain mannerisms once you get to know them better. Set boundaries on your first date. You should set boundaries on your first date, so that you wouldn't be taken advantage of. By setting boundaries, you would be able to identify your limits and act in accordance to them. This ensures that your date would respect you, and would ensure that you won't get offended by going beyond their limits. Dress appropriately. When it comes to the clothes that you want to wear on your first date, you have to consider the place that you are going to. For example, if you are taking her to an expensive restaurant, then you may want to wear something formal for it, but do not go over the top. On the other hand, if she wants to go and play bowling, then you should wear something that is comfortable. Know your date before going out with her. Prior to your first date, it is very possible that you have already spent a few minutes of talking to the woman that you are going out with. You should take that as an opportunity to learn things about her, which would help you decide on where to take her to. For instance, if she loves animals, then you may want to take her to a zoo, an aquarium, and such. Never assume the best or the worst. Do not assume that just because the person has shown interest in you and asked you out that he is really interested in a relationship or is even single. This is because there are people today who have multiple dating partners. On the other hand, do not assume that a guy is already married, just because he is successful in his career. Ask questions to find out the truth. Become fit. If you think that you lack confidence, then you should become fitter. Getting fit, like eating a well-balanced diet and going through exercise routines regularly, would not just boost your confidence, but it would also improve your looks. Moreover, it would also make you more energetic, which would help a lot in making your date enjoy your company. Recognize the difference in thinking between man and woman. When you are dating a woman that you really like, you have to recognize the fact that men and women have differences in the way they think. Women usually want their dates to make emotional or friendship sense, for them to become more interested. Thus, you should ensure that she would see the side of you that she likes, such as a person who is understanding, discreet, and also humorous. Know what you want. On your first date, you should know whether you want a long-term or a short-term relationship. This is important, so that you can let your date become aware about it. Thus, even if you really hit it off, if you only want a short affair, then you should let him know that it is what you want, so that he would know what to expect from you. Don't mention introducing him or her to your parents on the first date. Even if you really like your date, such as you see him or her as a possible candidate to be your partner in life, you should not tell your date that you want to introduce them to your parents. This is because you are still at the initial stages in your relationship. In fact, the other person may not even consider you being in a relationship yet, until you go out for a few more times. Never interrupt. When you are on your first date, and you are beginning to have a good conversation with the other person, it is important not to interrupt. This is because interrupting your date is a sign of disrespect. Let your date finish what he or she is talking about first, before asking another question or responding. What to do to find out if he is really interested in you after your first date. Even if you had a great time on your first date, you may still wonder whether he is really into you or not. To find out whether he is really interested in you, then you should wait a couple of days for his call. Be patient, since a man would find a way to spend more time with you if he really wants to. If he does not give you a call, then move on. Be a shoulder that she can lean on. In dating the woman of your dreams for the first time, you should show her that you are like a shoulder that she can lean on anytime she wants. Women need their men to be strong, confident, and someone who knows what to do in different situations. Thus, do not be a crybaby, and show her that you have emotional strength. Do not forget that women like to talk. Most women like to talk, even those who seem to be the silent type. With that, if you want your date to have a good time and the same time, get to know her better, then you should let her talk and listen attentively. To get her started, all you have to do is to ask the right questions, and make sure that they cannot be answered by a simple yes or no. Make her trust you. In order to let a woman open up to you, you need to show her that you can be trusted. Trusting someone is not easy for most women, since they usually get hurt easily. Thus, you need to work in earning her trust, and you should start on it even on the very first time that you go out with her. Do not touch your date without considering if she likes it or not. You have to learn to read signals that would tell you whether a woman wants to be touched or not. If she is leaning towards you, and touching you lightly, then it means that you can reciprocate. It is very important that she shows signs that she wants to be touched before initiating it, so that you won't spoil everything. Dating is fun, but it requires effort. You have to invest effort, especially on your first date, so that you would be able to make it a fun activity. Aside from that, it would also give you a chance to learn more things about the other person. Through your first date, you would already be able to get an idea whether he or she is worth investing more of your time and efforts on. Do not expect something from your date that you do not possess or capable of doing. On your first date, you should not expect anything from the other person that you, yourself, are not capable of doing. Aside from that, you should also not expect too much from your date, so that you won't get disappointed. Know yourself, so that you know what you can expect from him or her. Be the one to pay for the date. Even if your first date was not really planned, or it happened spontaneously, you as the man, should always be the one to pay for it. Keep in mind that lots of women today may be willing to pay for the dinner or something. To impress her, you should be able to reach into your pocket first, and shoulder all the expenses on your date. What things you want to discover on your first date? There is no need to dig in so deep when it comes to gathering information about your partner on your first date. However, even if it is good to focus more on lighter topics, it is also best if you get a better idea on what he or she believes in, as well as their goals. Ask questions if you have to, but do not insist if your date looks for a reason not to answer them. Observe how your date treats the waiter or the waitress. On your first date, one of the things that you can watch out for is how he or she treats the restaurant staff. If your date is rude to the waiter or the waitress, then there is a big chance that he or she is an obnoxious person. If that is the case, then there is no reason to get on a second date with the person. Soft touches. If your date gives out signals that she wants to be touched, then you should remember that women usually love soft touches. You may be able to get a chance to do this while you are talking pretty close to each other, or when you are dancing. Touch her softly, so that she can feel how you admire her. Keep it mysterious. Lots of women love to date with mysterious men, since it sparks their curiosity, which excites them more. Thus, on your first date, it is a good idea to give out some details about yourself, but do not reveal everything. Aside from sparking their curiosity, it would also make them want to learn more about you, which would increase your chances for a second date. One of the best ways to impress a woman on your first date is to read her palm. This is because lots of women love their palms read, since it gives them a chance to learn something about their future, even if it may not be true. Aside from that, it would also give you a chance to hold her hands. Do not think too much of the future. On your first date, it is possible for you to think too much of your future. In other words, you may begin to wonder whether he or she may be your potential husband or wife, and such. Since you are even not in a relationship yet, do not think about these things about your future. Just focus on experiencing the date, so that you can have more fun in it. Give the date another a chance. Keep in mind that on your first date, it is also possible that you may not hit it off with the other person immediately. Thus, if you are not sure if you are really interested or not, then it is a good idea to give the other person a chance. Go out for a few more times, so that you can have a better idea if you want to go out with the other person more. How to impress your date by your looks. A good combination of shaving your face, dressing nicely, and having a good posture would help you score some points with the woman you are dating. This is very important on your first date. This is because the said combination would make you look like a man who can take care of himself, looks good, and is confident. Don't overdo on being polite. Although lots of women would appreciate it when you open up doors for them, it is best not to overdo it. Opening up the door to the restaurant for your date would surely impress her. However, if you overdo it by opening every door that you come across within strolling in the mall, then she may think that you are treating her like a helpless girl. Know yourself better. On your first date, it is very possible for the woman to ask you questions about yourself. She may ask you about what you want to achieve in your life, and, if you show signs that you are not sure about your answer, then it may turn her off. Know yourself better, so that you can give out answers that would impress her. Having a business card on your first date. If you have a business card, bringing it along on your first date is actually a good idea. This is because, you may be able to find a chance to give it to her to remember you by. Since it would contain your contact information, then she would know that you are looking forward to seeing her again.